I started foraging with mushrooms and learned pretty quickly to diversify, because foragers can't be choosers and mushrooms are not always out, even when they're supposed to be, and there's a lot of other things out of mushroom season. So I've assembled just about 12 of them out of my yard within a few minutes, and we'll cook some up and we'll answer your questions, and hopefully you'll get inspired. I can't feed you through the camera, but you could at least watch us enjoy it. So again, I'm Alan, and I'm in Asheville, and I run a tour company, and we take out a few thousand people a year now. And I started out selling mushrooms to restaurants. I ended up doing classes that became tours when Asheville became really popular as a destination. And that's what we're running now, several days a week, 6 guides that I have trained. And when we're done, we also cook up what we eat and take a small sampling for that. And the rest people bring home or they bring to a restaurant. And the restaurant makes it into a fancy dish. So that's the whole experience with what we do in Asheville. But you, of course, you can do that yourself at home. And that's what today's about, empowering you to do. If you want to learn more and you don't stick around the whole time, the website for that tour company is notastelikehome.org. My website, which has a lot more background, a lot more philosophy of foraging, is alanmuscat.com, alanmuskat.com. But we'll post that, in the notes afterwards, and I'm not hard to find. So I don't usually do Zoom calls, so I'm not prepared a program, and I'm quite open to questions. I don't know if there's a way to raise your hand on here, but we'll see that as soon as you have one. And don't feel bad about interrupting me. I interrupt myself all the time. But let me show you what we have here. And I think we have good with time. So some of this, if you can see it all, you might recognize. This is what you would have in your yard. If you're lucky, this is violets. We've all heard of it at least. And we serve this with our mushrooms. I won't tell you which yet. Just the other day on one of the tours. So again, love the one you're with. And if you're lucky, you'll have these mushrooms in your yard, like this person did when we did the tour. But if not, you probably have violets. And the other thing we put into that dish is this. And I'll come up to you and you'll see that it's somewhat like a scallion and quite tall at this point. And there it is. We left it in the ground so you could see that it's
Wow.
It's got a little bulb, just like a wild onion. That's just what some people call this. I call it onion grass. People who mow their lawns, not like me, I have a yard, and find that the grass smells like onions when they do, so they call it lawnmower weed. And I am liberating it from the soil here and revealing what looks exactly like a little miniature garlic clove, because another name is garlic grass, and it tastes like halfway between onion grass and garlic or onion.
But do you just eat the bulb, or do you eat everything?
All of it, just like any other onion, is edible. If you had a garlic plant, you could eat the whole thing.
Right.
As long as that is what you have. I don't know if everyone heard that question, but yes, you can eat the whole thing of this. But it's important in general because violets, you don't want to eat the roots. That part would make you sick. So when someone tells you something's edible, you want to know what part and whether it has to be prepared. So without further ado, I will introduce the star of the show. Does this look familiar?
Morel?
Let's see. Yes, the semblance of morel, because the way to know for sure is to shake it. And if it makes a sound like that,
It's not.
well, it's a fake one. Yeah, right. So not to disappoint you, we have the real thing here, and it came with a guardian you might recognize. Da-da-da! And here's the real deal. And they're small. The season is just starting, but that is enough to enjoy a taste of the world famous Morel. And these were just gifted to me, picked on the Biltmore estate, which is here in Asheville. And don't tell them we stole them. Thanks. So that will be a meal in and of itself. We have, we could do a little salad with the violet because you can eat it raw. You can eat the onions raw, but we're going to cook them with the morels. And then the morels you can not eat raw. These could also kill you if you ate them. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, so edible doesn't mean edible in any state. So what part is it that you can eat and how does it need to be prepared? Those are both important.
My understanding of morels is that you have to boil them first, throw out the water, and then you can use them.
Yeah, so the question is, I don't know if I guess the volume will come through to other people. And do you have to boil and throw out the water for morels or any mushroom? And I would not say that's true for morels if the morels are well cooked. You don't have to take, and cook something out with water. There are spicy mushrooms, and I'm sure in Finland, as you said. Yeah, there are I wonder if it's on my visual aid here, but there are mushrooms that you would want to cook first, and with boiling. And this looks like one of them down here. What does that say? Field bluet. No, you wouldn't have to boil bluet, but there are mushrooms, these brittle gills we call them, that are very spicy, and you often cook that out because it's not a pleasant spiciness. You cook that out with water, and then you could saute it. So right, so morels, I don't think you have to do that, but I'm speaking for my area. You see, I'm not a world expert, and things could be different in other places. What I call a morel here might not be the same thing that you call a morel even in the same country. There is something called a false morel that boiling would probably be a really good idea. It's actually very toxic raw. And when you cook it, you don't even want to be smelling the fumes. So preparation is important, and now's not the time to get the full perfect story. This is just an introduction, and hopefully will inspire you to learn more from an expert. And the only thing to remember today is to find someone to learn with and learn from. Half hour or an hour is not enough, and watching a video is not enough, but time and practice is really the best way and the only way to learn these things. Sound good? Well, I'm going to show you, because we're at a good clip here, a few more things that you might find where you live, because I know these grow all over, at least in the east where I am. This is garlic mustard, and some would laugh to hear about it because people rip it out by the hundreds as a terrible weed. They want to get rid of it. It's related to any other mustard green, including things like cauliflower and broccoli, but it has more of a garlicky and a mustardy flavor than either of those. And you can prepare it like the other greens, raw or cooked, as long as that's what you have. So the other reason to work with someone else is that you want them to look at what you've picked to make sure it's what you think it is. And to send someone like me a photo wouldn't be enough, because you might photograph one of them and have 100. And I haven't looked through all of them, and I don't know that they're all the same. So really, this is the best advice I can give you, is to work with a person. That's what hunter-gatherer society would have, is a whole community to learn from, to grow up with. I've done this for 30 years, and that's the main thing that I want to tell people, who want to do it yourself. DIY is DUM. So here's my teacher I want you to meet. Here he is. I appreciate all his help. He taught me this plant. May or may not recognize another yard weed, but this is what I like to focus on. What's new, close and convenient. It's called Bittercress. It's not all that bitter, and it's another type of mustard. And you can use this if this is what you have in your yard. And that's, again, mustardy flavor. Hopefully you like that. If you like arugula, then I think you would like that. Something that may or may not be in your yard. Around here, it's so common that it's in ditches, and they call it ditch lily. But the common name, or the formal name, would be day lily, because it blooms for a day. And it's edible, but edible cooked. Most people would get sick to some extent if they only ate it raw. And I can tell you from experience that that is true, because I'm one of those people. So I have a list that when we do a tour, we show people at the beginning. We say, don't worry about memorizing so many different names. I'll show you the list. And this is available for free on the website, because we do at the end is circle the names. And so even now, you don't have to take notes or try to memorize things. We're recording this, and if I hold it right side up, you might get a sense that there's quite a few things. This is just the most common things that you could find, and we circle the names at the end. And like everything else, it's just a matter of practice. And memorizing names doesn't mean you really know the thing. You spend time with it. And that's how you get to know a person, right? You meet them, you learn their name. It doesn't mean you really know them. Something else you get on the tour that you could buy online, or is this little booklet that I wrote that is becoming a book on wild mushrooms. But you could actually get this as an ebook. And it's not that I'm trying to sell you things. I'm just showing you stuff that I have. You can have this for free if you write me and you say, hey, you said it was free. So the point is, there's a lot of resources there, particularly people, and those aren't things I'm selling. That's the best resource. Why don't you want to get started? Look, meet
Hi,
my
everyone.
lovely assistant, Savannah. And
I am going to cook up some of the things that we found today. Let's see. So, morels. Got. Do you want to use the ramps?
yes, I'll introduce them, and then you could start with that stuff.
You can use the onion grass.
Wow.
And let me show you the other guest of honor. These are ramps. Ramps are a wild leek, and even though they're an onion like the onion grass, they're wide leafed, and you can see why it's called wild leek. Except we've cut the bottoms off. We left that in the ground to grow. But if you were to pull that up, it would be another bulb like other onions, and it would smell like onions. If you know ramps, then you know they have somewhat of a unique, really pleasant smell, unless you have to kiss someone who's been eating them. Then you might not think so. So that's going to go in the dish as well. And if you want to say anything about what you're doing, you can.
All right.
We are going to cook tonight with, since we don't have to impose on anyone else, this is rendered pork fat, of which
Oh my God.
you might, if you eat pig, have quite a bit more than you could stand. When I do tours, we use butter, and but I'm at home, so you have to eat what I eat. So we'll use that. That's what I have a lot of. Butter works. Any kind of oil that you like to use will work. Salt, pepper, That's all you need. The onion, the garlic is going to be wild, but you could use that regular garlic. You could use dried wild stuff. In fact, I have a big jar of that, more than I could ever use. This is all ramps that have been dehydrated with salt.
Wow.
So I chopped them up, and the salt pulled out all the flavor, and then I dried the whole thing. And you can powder it and use it like you would, have onion salt from the store. But we don't need it today. We have it fresh, but all year round you could use this.
So the first thing that you want to add is the morels, just because you want to cook mushrooms a little bit longer than most of the things that we're cooking today.
Are y'all starting to see a bunch of morels coming up in North Carolina? We are just on the front end of season here.
Yeah, we're a little further into it. I have found older morels already of the black kind. So the first will be those black kinds, you might know that. And then later the yellow ones. So those have not started. So I would say, it's early, but not we're past the beginning. I've been doing tours on Saturdays, and every Saturday I will hopefully be seeing more, because last week we barely got a handful. I think either turkeys or another mushroom hunter got there before we did. Because I had been out there a few days before to check, and I had marked a spot on my GPS. When we went back, we couldn't find it. And either I'm a terrible mushroom hunter or someone got to them. Yeah. All right, let me show you one more thing while Samantha's cooking. This is probably the #1 lawn enemy, America's most unwanted.
Dandelions.
Yeah.
There you go. And I picked these the other day, so they're a little bit wilted, and they're actually going to seed. But every part of this, including the seed head, is edible. I actually like the stems. That's what I'm chewing on now. And the leaf, you don't have to have as food. If it's too bitter for you, you can drink it. I mean, a lot of us like coffee, so you may have heard of dandelion root coffee. You can also do similar flavor by making tea from the leaves. You can dry them, and you can also tincture them. That's what I have here. Give me a second. I have here the leaf chopped up in alcohol, and that's steeping for 6 weeks. Now here I have the flowers in oil, and that will steep about the same amount of time if I can wait that long, because it's quite tasty as a salad dressing.
Oh my God. Wow.
If you have a lot of something, that's some of what you can do.
Is there a particular mushroom season either in North Carolina or Kentucky? And are there sort of, like you said, morels are coming in season now, but what other mushrooms and what part of the year are they available?
Yeah, we have hundreds of mushrooms, but in the 10 or 15 years that I hunted mushrooms commercially, I learned that 90% of the time, the ones that I picked over and over again were the same 10. And morels were just one of those 10. There are chicken of the woods is probably the next edible that comes out. There's hen of the woods that comes out in October, but in between there's lobster mushrooms. This is in my area, and yours could have different mushrooms, but they don't vary too much. There's boletes, like the porcini or the cep you may have heard of.
Right, yeah.
And there's, on ours, maybe in Kentucky, but certainly in our area, something called the leatherback milk cap. And I see you nodding. Do you have that? Yeah.
Yes, well, I've heard of that. I've never ate that.
Yeah. And we have honey mushrooms that are almost all over the world. And one I did not mention yet is reishi. It's a medicinal mushroom that you can't eat when it's young, and that can come out as early as May. And that's about just about the top 10. There's a couple of the medicinal ones that I recommend looking for. And they're top 10 because, again, they're the most common, not necessarily the most delicious. But Chanterelles is both. Chanterelles, common and delicious, and it's on this napkin. I'm sure you've seen it if you know anything about mushrooms. But if not, here it is. It's the yellow one in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next to it is that king bowl leaf that's famous. But, we went out today and did not find morels. And the folks, I had to tell them again and again, foragers can't be choosers. You want to be prepared for what is there. Love the one you're with. How I
love it.
The whole point of foraging is to be able to be present and make the most of what you have. Especially with COVID and, with people look at how hard it was to get this talk set up. If everything falls apart and you're a forager, you'll be fine.
Yep.
I went to dinner once with folks. I met them. It was, the restaurant at the health food store, the deli, and it was shut down. The lights were off. They were standing in the parking lot. The power had gone out. They said, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, well, I know what I'm going to do. I could forage right behind the store. Unfortunately, the toxicity of that isn't picking something poisonous. It's picking something in an area we've polluted. So foraging is not difficult. It's not dangerous, but I like to say not foraging is more dangerous because of the stuff you eat in the store might be intentionally polluted with pesticides and stuff like that, or GMOs. I don't know about you, but something smells fantastic. I think it's coming from behind me.
That's what in my head I was thinking. Man, I wish I was there because I bet the aroma is just filling that room.
Oh yeah. It's very distracting. Like I said, at any point you jump in with any questions that you have. But drum roll.
Oh man!
Wow, that was quick.
Okay, so it's the morels.
Oh,
yeah. So this is the morels sauteed with the wild onion, the violet leaf. I put some violets to garnish on top, and there's a little local sheep's cheese right there. I think that's sumac that I dusted it with. So the morels, I like to cook a little bit longer so that you can kind of get a good char on them, and I think that makes the flavor really come out, and it makes them easier to digest as well, and that's with most mushrooms I've found, but that's also personal preference.
Looks delicious.
Yeah, and that, as you could see, was a quick bang up job. Oh gosh, I feel guilty doing eating it. You better get a fork too.
Okay.
Look, is this not the cutest thing? This is a morel, this tiny little thing.
My God.
Oh wow.
Every little bit counts.
It does.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
All right.
I bet it's delicious.
So I with hopes and blessings that you find your own, we'll conduct this ritual of invoking the morel spirits for you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Let me ask you about foraging in November.
Mm-hmm.
What's common in the woods? Our woods and your woods are very similar. So,
Yeah.
what is common, or is it a terrible time?
No, there's no terrible time. We run year round, even through February. You could dig in the snow and find chickweed just doing great. And so the same goes for November.
Wow.
The greens come back, and nowadays, unfortunately, with climate change, like November can be fairly warm. You can get a Indian summer.
Right.
So, at that time of year, as it gets cold, if you hunt animals, then you shift into that. So that's certainly possible. But for plant foods, it's a little late for nuts. You can still get red acorns, which really are my favorite, even though I'll show you some. People avoid the darker acorns, but this is one of my prized possessions. It just looks like grape nut cereal, but it's really delicious because it's the red acorn, the one you could get in November. In November might also get wild grapes. They come out late. And what else? Oh, persimmons will keep falling, wild persimmon fruit.
Wow.
There are mushrooms that will come out as late as November, including hen of the woods.
Oh.
And hen of the woods can be enormous. And it probably is in your area too.
What do you use the red acorn for?
So the red
how would you use that in food or whatever?
Yeah, it has what I would describe as a bitter almond flavor. So it's nutty, and I use it like nuts. In fact, I think this stuff came out so good that I grew up in Miami eating Carvel ice cream cakes, and they have this stuff that I think is just crushed up Oreo cookies in the middle, and that's what this is like. Tastes like to me, and I put it on dairy in a dessert, like over yogurt and with maple syrup, and it's just wonderful. Yeah. So I wish you could taste that as well. And you can process that year round. I'll show you something else. In November's a little late, but this is my new beloved possession, the Grandpa Goody Getter Nutcracker. And you don't need this.
Can you crack a coconut?
It wouldn't fit, but I bet I'm sure it could. If it could fit, it would crack. This you might know as a black walnut.
Right.
If you know walnuts at all, then this is the wild version. You can see it's sort of more black.
Yep.
So you know that. And so November's a bit late for these. But, and if you think they're too hard to crack, you should get yourself one of these because it's amazingly easy. The reason this is hard is that these nuts are like 2 or 3 years old. So they're harder to crack. This is a bad illustration. But if you use this year's, what's good about this is not like that it makes it easy to crack, it's that it doesn't smash the nuts. And you get like whole quarter pieces out of it because it just it just puts the pressure in just the right place.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I mean, if you try to use a hammer, which is what I did for years, it's not that it's difficult to crack them so much as difficult to have them stay in big pieces.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have much berries in the forest as well, or no, in North Carolina or Kentucky, or no?
Sure. I'm in Western North Carolina, and we have wineberry, which is a wild raspberry. We have plenty of blackberries.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I just am finishing up some juice. I make sort of my own Gatorade out of it all year round.
Nice. Yeah.
And other berries, there's a list on our website, by the way, of other things. But one of them is autumn olive. And that has kind of considered invasive, and it's on a shrub. But that fruit is just delicious. If you juice that, it tastes like lychee fruit. Lychee from, Asia. Really amazing.
Is that a native plant?
No, like I said, it comes from, I think, like Kazakhstan, like where...
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but it does very well here. And so people don't like it taking over because the birds eat those berries and spread them.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm blanking out. I'm sure there are others. I just showed spice bushberry today, and that's, as it sounds, more of a spice than a thing you would eat as a fruit. And that's, you could put in a pie. You don't fill it with the berries. You use it as like nutmeg, if you imagine spicing a pie with nutmeg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The other berries.
All right, well, guys, I'm going to have to sign off. Not that I should announce because I'm just one of the audience here, but I'm going to sign off. But this has been really fascinating. So I might hit you up for that free mushroom guide. But anyway. So anyway, thanks very much. I'm signing off because I got to go and make dinner. Otherwise, the family's not going to be happy. But this is fascinating. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.